All right, this is going to be my first cut. There's so much in here. We're probably going to be going through it for weeks, but this is just my first cut of stuff I see that's important to me. There's the loan out agreement. Then there's a standard terms and conditions attached, which looks like it's Wayfair's standard terms and agreements. And then it references the SAG standard terms and conditions for theatrical releases for actors. So all three of those are in the mix. I had to look up the SAG one on the internet. It didn't really change anything fundamentally. But those are the agreements that we're dealing with. For me, the biggest revelation of seeing this contract finally is that we have the answer to a really important question, which is, was she an employee or was she an independent contractor when she was performing services as an actor on this movie? And this contract makes it clear to me that she was an independent contractor. Now, yes, it says employment eligibility here, and there's other places in this contract where it references employment. But the substance matters much more than the form. And the law is very clear about, it's called the economic reality test of when somebody is an independent contractor versus when they are an employee. And some of the most substantial factors in that test are, how long is the relationship? Is it permanent or not? Well, obviously this isn't permanent. The biggest one is how much control does the person have over their work? If you can only do what they tell you to do and you do it the way they tell you to do it, that's an employee. The more control the person gets over the work they do and how and when and where, the more likely it is that they are an independent contractor. In terms of the person being able to profit off of the work, like if I do a better job, I can make more money versus someone just being a flat rate. The more control they have over how profitable the endeavor is also leans towards independent contractor. So I think it's pretty clear that this is an independent contractor relationship. I assume, I am not an entertainment lawyer, but I assume that there is plenty of law out there on this in California about actor loan out agreements and whether they're employees or independent contractors. But this reads, I think there's like a 95% chance she's an independent contractor. And the reason that matters is because under federal discrimination laws, under Title VII, if you are an independent contractor, those laws do not apply to you. And they do not apply to your employers because you're not employed. She is an employee of Blakel Inc. Blakel Inc. then loans her, the employee, out as an independent contractor to It Ends With Us LLC, which means that if she's an independent contractor working for It Ends With Us LLC, Title VII is completely off the table. And those Title VII claims just go away. Now, the FEHA claims might stay, and Little Girl Attorney is going to cover that issue because she's a California lawyer, because FEHA has added some language in there about independent contractors, maybe for this exact reason. But under Title VII, the federal law for sexual harassment and retaliation, those do not apply to you if you're an independent contractor. And FYI, I just went back and looked at her second amended complaint. She alleges that they were employers, and she alleges that Wayfair and It Ends With Us LLC are really the same thing. I'm going to show you some more information on that. But she alleges that they were employers. I did not have the energy to go back and see what, I'm sure they denied, paragraph 354, but I don't think that's true. So when it comes to this argument that Wayfair has made in the MJOP on retaliation, first and foremost, they're like, she didn't work for us because she wasn't our employee. We couldn't have committed an adverse employment action against her because she was never our employee to begin with. But in addition to that, and lawyers often make alternative arguments. Well, it's this, but even if it's not, it's this, and even if it's not, it's this. They have made this argument that when the smear campaign happened, she was not their employee. She was not under their control, and therefore they could not have engaged in an adverse employment action against her. And I think this language from the agreement bolsters that, because the agreement makes clear that after principal photography is over and you get into post-production and promotion, she starts to be able to have a lot more control over what she does. So once you get into post-production and publicity, you see these terms I've highlighted, right? That she needs to give all post-production services that are reasonably required. Reasonably required means she gets to decide whether it's reasonable or not. They are all dependent on her professional availability. Sorry, I have another thing. I don't think I'm going to do that one. Now, she does have to use reasonable good faith efforts to be available. They are supposed to consult meaningfully, right? But she is not under their thumb anymore because principal photography is over. So I think that helps their argument that, like, yeah, she was still getting paid by us because technically we were still promoting this movie. But even if she was our employee before, she sure as hell isn't now. The one thing that could be helpful to Lively is this section at the bottom that says she doesn't have to do promotion she doesn't want to do, but we do want to make it clear that she can't just not do promotion. Like, part of the reason we are paying her to do this is to do some promotion, but how much she does and who she does it with and how she does it is largely up to her. So her claim for breach of this agreement is breach of this section. They've breached section 7, which says sexual harassment is prohibited. This is part of the standard terms and contracts that look like it was drafted by Wayfarer. And so what she's doing here is saying, even if Title VII doesn't apply, and even if FEHA doesn't apply, they breach their own term of their contract that says sexual harassment isn't allowed. Now, that creates all kinds of other issues because usually something like this will reference other laws. Sexual harassment as defined under blah, blah, blah. Sexual harassment as prohibited by this law. They didn't do that here. But what's interesting is at the end, so it says all this stuff about what sexual harassment is and how it's wrong and how it's not going to be tolerated. And then in the end, it says, and the event company, it ends with us LLC, is aware of any sexual harassment by artists, we can terminate you. This is a provision saying that Wayfarer can go after her for sexually harassing someone. Now, it's fair game because it generally says nobody should be doing it. But the way this is drafted is they're worried about her. And I don't think they were worried about Blake. I think this is their standard language to say anybody who comes into our orbit, don't fucking sexually harass people or we have the right to fire you. So I just find it ironic that she's now claiming this is the part that they breached. All right, for all the improvised sex scene talk, the only thing in the contract is she cannot be nude and she cannot be asked to film scenes in the nude. It doesn't say she wants to have an intimacy coordinator. It doesn't say that people can't improvise sex scenes. Now, it's fair to say there might be standards of care used in the movie industry in general that would suggest that certain things should have been done that weren't. But under her contract, she did not demand, I want an intimacy coordinator, I want to be advised, but she just said, I don't want to be naked and I don't want you using any kind of body doubles or AI to make me look naked either. That's all that it says. All right, we also got an answer on California law, right? We knew that the contract said it was governed by California law, but I was waiting for the for the language of what that applied to. Because see how it says, like, number 1, the validity and interpretation of this agreement shall be sometimes they just stop there, right? And it's like, oh, well, if it's anything else, I don't have to use California law. This one does at number 3 say all other causes of action, whether sounding in contract or tort, arising out of or relating to this agreement. So the argument that Blake is making is claims that I was sexually harassed on set and that you guys breached this contract and the writer when you did these things to me. Those things very much arise out of this agreement because they arise out of this movie and therefore they should be governed by California law. And the Wayfarer response to that is that whole extraterritorial application thing. A couple of things about money. I've seen people already talking about she had a back-end deal for some of the back-end profits for this movie, and it was a very profitable movie. And, you know, she probably made a whole bunch of money off of this. Maybe somebody like Alicia, who's in that industry, can tell us, like, you know, how all that works. But what I can tell you is that if she got 10% of the profits from a really profitable movie, that's really going to hurt her damage claims. When she says, I lost all this money because Blake Brown was supposed to have this big launch, a jury's going to be like, but you made $40 million off the movie. Like, what are we complaining about? So legally speaking, it's not a barrier, but it might create some issues for her. The other one is this, which is in Wayfarer's standard terms, which says, in no event will any party have to pay consequential, incidental, special, or punitive damages. Lost profits are special damages. So if they ever got this thing to trial, they could use this too to try to limit what she can recover. There's a million more things I could go on for days. Tell me what you want to know.